It's October, and that means it's time for super scary recipes. And there is nothing scarier to me than yours cooking. So to spare us all a heinous death from food poisoning, we are going to make Mother Breyer's Nielsberg style stew. And there's a tip at the end for if you want to make your stew look extra cursed. So I'm gonna start by chopping 2 brown or yellow onions. But don't say I never suffer for you, because...
Oh, my eyes!
Also, maybe don't wear red mascara while you're working on chopping onions, because it will look like you're bleeding from your eyes. Anyway, so we're also going to finely mince, I'm talking an entire head of garlic. In order to get like a fine mince, I'll use salt to help draw out the extra moisture, and it also helps it not stick to my fingers. We're also going to add some thyme. Special guest, Kara, she refused to wear her hat, and I was not about to fight my cat on that. We're also going to chop up some parsley, and we're going to chop up some bell peppers. This is how I prep my bell peppers. So I cut off the top and the bottom, and then I use one slice, and then I roll out the bell pepper, cut that into strips, and then cut that into chunks. It is so easy. Yeah. And then I'm also adding carrots. I am going to chop half of the carrots into like little chunks, and then I'm also going to slice half the carrots into rounds because we saw Yor do the same thing. I'm gonna peel and chop 3 large russet potatoes. I also tend to wash my potatoes before I chop them because I don't like any dirt just getting on my cutting board. We're also going to slice some kielbasa. It's a Polish sausage, and then I'm also going to use some kielbasa as the little squid that we saw in the clip. So once the kielbasa is seared, I'm going to add my onions, carrots, and bell peppers to the pot, and I'm going to let them sweat for about 10 minutes on medium heat. And then once they started to soften just a little bit, I'm going to add in my garlic and cook that for another like 5 minutes. Something I should have mentioned is that I will heavily salt my carrots, onions, and bell peppers because I want the salt to help draw the water out from the vegetables through osmosis. So we're going to also add in some tomato paste after that's had a chance to kind of work its magic, and we're going to build up a fond on the bottom of the pan by continuing to draw out the moisture from the vegetables. I was going to add in some caraway seeds and paprika. So when I was thinking of the recipe for this stew, I kind of wanted to focus on like the historical part of the Cold War, or what we see going on between Westphalias and Ostania, East and West Germany specifically. This is based around the time that there's a big iron curtain that divides Europe into 2 zones. And what we hear is that Yor's family is from Nielsberg, which is in the southern part of whatever is happening. Now, paprika, bell peppers, which paprika is just dehydrated and finely ground bell peppers, are commonly used in in a lot of things, but the one that came to mind the most was paprikash, which is Hungarian, but I felt that was a little too far south, so I focused more on like a Czech goulash. So we're kind of taking influences all over from Eastern Europe. Because of the sausage, I didn't want to do beef, which I know that beef is a large part of goulash, and since hindsight is always 20/20, maybe I should have, because after looking at the images again, there are those dark chunks, so maybe I should have had beef, but it is what it is. We're going to add in our crushed tomatoes and our beef stock, and we are going to mix those together. The potatoes are going to absorb quite a bit of liquid, so after I added the sausage, I went ahead, took a look at how much liquid was in the stew, and then I added more stock to help thin it out, just because, again, the potatoes, the carrots, those are going to absorb quite a bit. We're also going to top this with some bay leaves. We're going to taste for seasoning, which is very important. We're going to add, yes, of course, more paprika, more caraway. I also added a little bit of cumin, some garlic powder, chili powder, and some additional salt, because while I salted the vegetables at the very beginning, the potatoes will absorb quite a bit of salt. We're also going to add in a couple more sprigs of thyme, and then we're going to add the chopped parsley and mix that together and let that cook down. You might think, well, that could be a garnish. No. We're going to add that into the stew Trust me, it gave a really, really nice flavor. We're going to cover this with a lid, and we are going to let this simmer for anywhere between 45 minutes to 1 hour until the potatoes are fork tender, meaning that when I use a fork and push it into a potato, it just goes right in. There's no resistance. This took me a little bit longer, I think, just because of the sheer amount of soup I made, but we're also going to work on these cute little sausage squids. So I went ahead and I cut, like you saw in the beginning, the squid, like the sausage pieces in half, and then I went ahead and cut like 8 little legs into the sausages, and I heated up some oil, and I'm just cooking them until they're cooked all the way through. They're nice and blistered on the sides. But the sausage will naturally like kind of pull apart because of the casing that's on the outside. So it creates this super cute little octopus effect. Loved that. Absolutely loved that. So we're going to let those set aside while the stew finishes cooking, and you'll see here what I mean by fork tender. It needed like 2 more minutes. Then we're going to, of course, add in a little bit of sour cream and stir that around. And then we're going to go ahead and get ready to serve this. Now, of course, the way that yours family served this was with a fried egg on top, which I went ahead and cooked, and a little sausage squid. Now, how I made mine really cursed looking was I took just a little bit of squid ink and I mixed that into the soup. It had no impact on flavor, but it was utterly terrifying to look at in person. There was a part of my brain that knew that this, like the stew, tasted the exact same as the normal looking, super comforting yours mom stew, but there was that other like lizard part of my brain that was like, I cannot touch this. I will die. So I would recommend, if you want to make a soup or a stew look absolutely terrifying this Halloween, just add squid ink. Now you might wonder, can I use activated charcoal instead of squid ink? No, I will always use squid ink. Well, I technically should say cuttlefish ink, for one reason, and that is activated charcoal interferes with medication. If you are on any medication like blood pressure, psychiatric, birth control, activated charcoal will bind to medications in the GI tract, which can sometimes lead to medications not being absorbed correctly and can interfere with them. So if you are on a medication of some kind, I myself am on a psychiatric medication, avoid using activated charcoal in your food. Personally, I would just recommend that you use squid ink or cuttlefish ink rather than activated charcoal if you are looking to get like a spooky black color for any food for this Halloween. But that brings us to the end of the episode. Thank you so much for watching. If you liked what you saw, smash that like button. If you have any comments, questions, suggestions, drop those down below. Thanks to a viewer's suggestion, next week I am doing some beverages in honor of Lord of Mysteries, which I have some thoughts on and I will share because I don't do anything that I have not seen, and I had not seen this, and oh my gosh, wild. Anyways, like, subscribe, share, ring the bell for notifications, all that jazz. And as always, adventurers, please take care of yourselves, do something nice for someone else, and I will see you next time. Bye-bye.